What's up, guys? Welcome back yet to another video here. It's going to be a little shorter one because there was only NFL this weekend. Let's go through our recap real quick. We'll pull it up here. We struggled on the best bet department. We went a combined 1-4. And then headlines, we both went 2-0, obviously. And then Fantasy Explosion, I went 2 out of 3. And Jose, even though all his players did their projected score, they didn't do the 5+, so he went 0-3 in that. I'm getting closer to the positive department, and Jose is getting closer to the negative department, so this comeback is real. It'll come down here to these last couple of weeks with the college football playoffs and then the NFL playoffs coming up. But let's go into our first order of business. The Bills take out the favorites, the Lions, in a high-scoring game in Detroit. What are your thoughts in that game?
Mainly an injury worry, a big one coming out of Detroit. We know that David Montgomery is done for the year, torn MCL. I'm really worried about how that's going to affect the balance and run game of the Detroit offense. They've really been able to be a strong run game with the Sonic and Knuckles duo, the way they were able to pound it with Montgomery, and then they can do the pass runs, outside runs, sexy runs with Gibbs, and then obviously the supplemental incredible pass game with both Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown, even Sam Laporta. Jared Goff obviously had an incredible game because of that with the 5 touchdowns, 494 yards. So that definitely the concern is now that balance is going to be thrown off. I know Ben Johnson's an amazing OC, and he should be able to overcome that, and he might be able to, but it's a big blow. And then from the game, another takeaway is just how good really Buffalo is. That's multiple weeks in a row they have to score 40+. They did it again. Obviously last week they had the loss, but this week they were able to handle the business against an even better Detroit Lions team. So great win from them. Josh Allen again, Superman MVP performance this week, and he got a couple more guys involved. Shakir, he would have had that one crazy pass to Kincaid, but he got called back. So obviously just a great game from them. I do think they're. I know Kansas City's going to be the 1 seed because of some crazy magic voodoo. But I do think Buffalo's looking like the best team in the AFC, and they again showed that this week.
Yeah, I agree with all what you said. Josh Allen really put his name on that MVP trophy unless something crazy happens these last 3 weeks. And it is a concern. I think losing Montgomery obviously could have some bad implications for the Lions. I think Montgomery's a guy that really wears down the defense and sets the tone, and Jamar Gibbs is more of the speedy guy, outside runs. He does do between the tackle stuff, but that's more Montgomery style. So obviously the real winners here are the Jahmyr Gibbs fantasy owners, especially with the playoffs coming up here. But obviously sad to see Montgomery go down, and this Detroit Lions, who the defense has been riddled by injuries. Now the offense is getting affected a little bit, but I still think they're a really good team, and they could win the whole thing still. But we'll see how Ben Johnson deals with this Montgomery injury. And then the Bill side of things, obviously we knew Josh Allen is him, but he showed he's Timothy again. But yeah, I think like you said, I think they're the AFC favorites. I still have the Chiefs if they match up in the playoffs, especially in Kansas City, but they could win that game because we saw them beat them earlier in the year. But we'll see when that comes down. Moving on to
the biggest takeaway from that game was the skipper fantasy owners, the big win with him getting that touchdown.
Anyway, I don't think anyone owns it. Anyway, moving on to the next subject. Why were the Panthers ever favored against my Cowboys?
Because Bryce Young, close games against the Eagles, close games against the Chiefs. Bro, they fooled everybody. Who knew that losses could fool somebody so hard? They fooled America. They fooled Vegas. How about them Cowboys, huh? That's really, they were dominated completely. Rush game wasn't going. Passing game wasn't going. Defense wasn't doing it. Dallas was able to get Rico Dowdle going. Overall, just a great game from them. Handled Carolina, and in a big way I didn't think the Cowboys capable of doing to anybody this year.
Yeah, I think big game from Rico, big game from CD. I like how we are establishing the run. Rico went for 150 yard plus. Zeke had 20, 30 yards. So that's good to see, especially because earlier in the year we could not run the ball for anything. From the Carolinas perspective, I think they should have stuck with the run, especially earlier. We saw against the Chiefs and against the Eagles, that's what kept them in the game. Chuba Hubbard having big games and running the ball a lot with him. So especially against that Dallas defense that struggled against the run, they should have stuck with it. Bryce Young had a couple turnovers, kind of unfortunate turnovers, but I'm not really concerned with him. I still think he's improving. Obviously, he still has ways to go, but I've liked what I've seen with him the last couple of weeks. He had a great scramble and throw this past game against the Cowboys, but I think obviously both teams are not playoff hopeful, but still good to see my Cowboys leaning on the run a little bit more because it was frustrating early in the year when they weren't even trying to run.
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely, that's what we've been hearing about them. Every Cowboys fan is begging for G&T. Except you. I don't think it's a smart decision to draft them.
No, we have so many holes. Like running back is not a big deal right now. I'd rather draft the wide receiver 2 or D-line help because we've had a lot of injuries this year and that's been a thing. Linebacker, corner help, anything. Offensive line, any other position but quarterback and running back. I would like.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, but I do see a lot of that clamoring for G&T. A lot of mocks. Probably the top mock pick for the Cowboys is G&T.
I see it too, and it pisses me off.
Yeah.
Hopefully Jerry doesn't make that mistake. But
dude, I have that too. They keep so a lot of people are saying the Steelers are drafting Milroe. Like we don't have like a veteran quarterback right now.
Well, and Justin Fields.
Yeah.
That's like Milroe.
And right now we're in a trying to win now phase.
Yeah.
That we can't take on a project quarterback when we could take on, say, impact corner and impact receiver in the first round.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a bit off track. Let's move on to who we think the NFC favorite is after the Eagles' big win over AFC division leader the Steelers and with Detroit's big loss to AFC powerhouse Buffalo Bills. I was combining there. Powerful house.
I'm going to go still with, I don't know who will end up with the 1 seed. But I'm still going to go the overall favorite, the Lions. I think they're kind of obviously struggling with injuries, but I like the Lions. I like the running game. I like their passing game. I like they can win either by running or by passing. Obviously, Montgomery down, like we mentioned, it's a tough blow, but Jamar Gibbs can still take that hold. I really like their defense. Obviously, if Hutchinson was here, they would be way better, but they said he might come back for the Super Bowl, but we'll see. But they'll get some of those other guys back that have been injured on that defense. So I do like Detroit to still be the favorites, but I think Philadelphia is right there with them.
Yeah, I think Detroit's are my favorites headed, if we're counting the whole playoffs. Like, including the playoffs, including the NFC Championship. And then if Hutchinson comes back for the Super Bowl, I do think they could be super favorites for that. But in regards to the 1 seed, I do think it's going to be Philadelphia. Not because I think they're a better team, but because I think the schedule favors them right now. While Detroit's got to face Chicago, San Francisco, and again Minnesota. Philadelphia has 3 somewhat very easy games. All divisional games, but that means New York and Dallas. Commanders are obviously the scariest one.
Hey, don't put us in the same breath as New York, please. Dude, say New York, Dallas.
New York.
Commanders.
New York. You can't see, but I'm all the way down. Dallas Commanders.
I'll take that. Okay, that's fair. But yeah, I see the argument, but I was just thinking as overall, but I do think Philadelphia probably will end up with that 1 seed. Mm-hmm. Anyways, Minnesota dominating the Bears last night on Monday Night Football with those nice white unis. I really enjoyed those.
The Winter Warriors. Yeah. I saw that. They were all over my Instagram.
Who will win the NFC North now that they're tied up with the Lions? Obviously, Lions have a tiebreaker, but they have the same record.
I said it earlier. I do think not the Vikings. The Lions are the best team in the NFC right now, and because of schedule, I do think they might not win out the 1 seed. But because of schedule, they do have a favorable schedule over the Vikings. So I am taking Detroit, who faces it is Chicago. Yeah, Chicago this week, followed by the Niners, which I think. I mean, it'll be a harder game than some of the other opponents who have faced the Niners this year. They've had easier games, and I think Detroit will have a greater challenge from San Francisco. I think they're getting healthier, they're getting better, and they'll put up more of a challenge against Detroit, especially since we know they do have some bad blood left over from the NFC Championship a year ago, and I do think San Francisco shows up with more of a fight, and obviously. To me, it's all going to come down to the game, because even if Minnesota's 1 game down going into that game up against Detroit in the final week, I mean, they could still pull it out if they win there. But the decider for me is just the schedule. Minnesota's got to play Seattle, Green Bay, and Detroit, and I think that's just too hard to overcome. And I do think they're the team most likely to come up with a loss of the 3 NFC teams that have 2 losses right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think Detroit will win purely for schedule, because I think Minnesota has to play Green Bay, Seattle, and at Detroit. I think even like you said, if Minnesota comes 1 game down, if they win, but if that loss came to the Packers, even if they beat Detroit, I think Detroit still wins, because they only have 1 division lost, and Minnesota would have 2. But yeah, I'm just purely going off schedule-wise, even though I like the Vikings a lot. I like Aaron Jones. I like Sam Darnold's been playing good. Obviously, he had that shaky game against the Jaguars, but besides that, been pretty solid. Jordan Addison and Hawkinson are getting more involved. Justin Jefferson's still showing he's the best receiver in the league. Obviously, Jamar Chase having a crazy year, but to me, it's still Justin Jefferson. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Detroit based purely on schedule. I think they both end up with. I think Detroit wins out, to be honest, but I think Minnesota ends with 3 losses or 4. But they're still a really good team.
I think so too. I think Detroit's gonna win out. I would not be surprised at all. I do think that Minnesota game is gonna be very close. I do see Minnesota being able to fall, as you said, more likely to fall to Green Bay at least than they are to Seattle, especially with Geno's injury and Howell coming in. Green Bay didn't touch much on them. They're 2 games behind, so obviously, technically, mathematically, still possible, but really doubtful.
Yeah.
They don't have the hardest schedule either. They end at Chicago. I
think they play New Orleans.
They play New Orleans next
Monday
week,
night.
And then the game in between. I took the hardest route explaining this schedule possible. But it's Saints, Vikings, Bears.
Yeah.
And I do think Green Bay, definitely 2 of those are guaranteed wins. Obviously nothing's guaranteed, but in my opinion, safe wins for Green Bay. The main thing is hopefully you can get ahead of Minnesota by beating them and then hoping they fall to Detroit.
Yeah. But to me, Green Bay is one of the most dangerous teams in the playoffs. Obviously, you'll say those 1 and 2 seeds are the most dangerous, but like one of those lower seeds is probably them and the Rams. But I'll go with Green Bay. I think they're the most dangerous to me because they can win by running the ball with Josh Jacobs. He can go for 200 yards, or passing the ball with Jordan Love and those young receivers. He could go for 300 yards, and then that defense can get pressure on the quarterback, and they can create a lot of turnovers. So I think, to me, the Packers can make a lot of noise. I wouldn't be surprised if they make the Super Bowl, but I'm not going to pick them to do it. I'm going to pick Detroit and Philadelphia ahead of them, but I really like that Packers team, to be honest.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if they make the Super Bowl. Again, they wouldn't be my pick. But, I mean, it's just showing me how dangerous these teams in the wild card consideration are. You got Minnesota that I think could possibly go all the way. Green Bay could possibly go all the way. If the Rams end up with a wild card, I mean, I think they're a team that can beat anybody. They could beat Detroit or Philadelphia if they had to. I think they have the explosive power offensively to be able to do so. So, I mean, that's just a ton of teams that could go deep in the NFC wildcard race.
Yeah, I agree. Going straight into our Thursday night preview, the AFC wildcard teams, Chargers versus Broncos. What are your thoughts on that game?
I think it's a very interesting game. Obviously, the rematch of when Bo Nix burst onto the scene, Auburn versus Oregon a couple years ago. After that game, we all thought Bo Nix would turn into an Auburn legend. Surprising to everybody at that game, he turned into an Oregon legend a couple years ago when he led the Ducks to a couple of great seasons. Became the most touchdown pass thrower of all time. And then he went on to become the 12th pick in the draft to the Broncos. He's had a very, very solid rookie season. And right now they're even seated ahead of the Chargers. But regardless, I'm taking the Chargers. I like Herbert getting his revenge on Bo Nix from that game. I think they're a better team. He's a better quarterback. I like the Chargers' run game better. I like the Chargers' offensive line better, and I like the Chargers' defense better. The receiving options is probably what I like the least about the Chargers, but they've still gotten going recently. Ladd McConkey is actually a player I really like, and then Quentin Johnston, while inconsistent, is no longer consistently bad. He's had those good spurts. He's shown good stuff. Yeah,
with Quentin Johnston, to me, he's either, when I watch the game, he's either dropping every ball or catching every ball. A little hot and cold action, but he's been way better than he was last year when he was just dropping the ball. Lambeau Ladd coming into the season was one of my favorite players, and he's really played to his part. Obviously, he's been really banged up with his shoulder, and then his was it his leg or his knee or something. But hopefully he can get healthy for the playoffs. But I am going to pick the Chargers to win this game for all the reasons you stated. And since it's in LA as well, I still think Denver's a really good team. I still think they both have potential to make noise in the playoffs. But I'm going to pick the Chargers, and I don't mind that 3 spread, especially if it goes down to 2.5. I'll be all over that. But I wouldn't mind laying a field goal because I think the Chargers will win and bounce back.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, definitely very important seeding-wise for this game because whoever loses this game is most likely playing Buffalo, which is somewhere you don't want to be playing at all. I mean, I've said it before. I think, obviously, though, Kansas is right now the 1 seed, and they're going to be the 1 seed because, the schedule's a bit hard. They play Pittsburgh and Houston, and they might play those games without Mahomes, and that could end up being very decisive when it comes to that 1 seed battle. But I do think they're going to come out with the 1 seed. But Buffalo is definitely the team you don't want to face. Josh Allen's playing like Superman. And the loser of this game is most certainly going to have to play in that game.
Especially, if you're LA, going up north to that cold.
Yeah.
Playing in LA. Denver's a little used to it being in Colorado. But, LA is not used to that. And I think they'll be shocked. And I think the Bills would run away with that game.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for watching the reaction video this week. We have predictions for the big games coming up on Friday. Notre Dame, Indiana, and then all the other 3 on Saturday. The college football playoffs starting. We'll be in attendance actually for that Texas-Clemson game. So we'll have live view of that game.
Yep.
But thanks for watching and tune in for next week's episode.